recently had some questions about the shredder project, and they were some damn good questions. So I thought I would make a video and kind of go over them for everybody. So what was the point of the shredder? It was literally to take on armor plate at 100 yards. Now it does just fine against all level 3 offerings. At 25 yards, even ceramic, it just chews it up. Level 4 though, that's a different story. This requires a little bit more. The biggest problem with the shredder is I only can get varmint ammunition. Just your standard ballistic tip varmint ammo. That's the only offerings in 6mm. There's no full metal jacket. There's no steel core. If I would have had those options, I might have been able to do it. Now, see, when I built the shredder, I had got 22 Cheetah and 243 confused. So, if you actually go back to my videos, I talk about a 5.56 caliber projectile coming out of that. And that was from the confusion. If it would have been a 22 Cheetah, then yes, I could have used the 5.56 offerings, I could have used steel core ammo, stuff like that, and then level 4 would have most definitely been on the menu. But unfortunately, no, it's a 6mm. The only thing in those calibers is stuff specifically designed for varmint. But when it comes to steel armor, and even ceramic armor, the only thing that matters is velocity. As long as you have the velocity, you're going to tear it apart. With level 4, because of the combination of materials in there, you need a little bit more than velocity. Now you're going to need like an actual steel core, this way it can drill its way through. For example, when the 243 hits the steel, the projectile just explodes on the front of the armor, but it sends a shockwave through that it almost looks like a paper punch. It just pops out a piece of the armor becomes a projectile, it ultimately penetrates the target. So, yes, 22 Cheetah would have been amazing. That would have been a 22 caliber 308 cartridge. They would have just taken a 308 cartridge, necked it down to 22, that would have been perfect for my needs. However, it's a Wildcat cartridge, so everything's proprietary. I would have had to have a barrel cut. It would have sucked. So, why didn't I go with 22 250 or say 22 Swift or 220 Swift? Well, that goes to the projectile taper. As you'll notice, an AR-10 mag is relatively straight. It does have a slight curve. Because the 308 cartridge doesn't stack perfectly, it does have a slight taper in it, but not very much. So generally speaking, it's relatively a straight magazine. You have a little curve, but nothing severe. Well, with 22 250 and 220 Swift, it has a pretty good taper on it. So you would need something that looks more like an AK magazine. As you know, there's a reason why 7.62x39 typically isn't in an AR platform. Because they have to remove a little bit of the lower receiver right here. They kind of cut it like this to be able to fit the crazy angle of the AK mag in there, otherwise it just turns too quickly. Like comparing these two magazines with the tops flat, and now they're both lined up. Notice how the AK mag curves almost immediately, where the AR mag is straight up top and then it starts to curve down here. That's for the magazine well. Now it is possible to do this in like 22 250, but you would literally have to remake the magazine and the lower receiver because there just isn't a lot of popularity in the AR-10 platforms, except for in like 308 or 6.5 Creedmoor. What's the point? Nobody cares about 22 250 or 220 Swift, except for a couple of people that are looking for velocity. They typically don't look for velocity in a gas gun, they typically look for it in a bolt gun. So there's just no compatible parts. Yes, with a machine shop, a 3D printer, CAD, I could probably figure it out and make it happen, but it was just easier to go with the 243. Where's the casing? Because the 243 is literally a 308 case, it's just neck down. I actually have, is this one a 243? Because I actually have a bunch of 308s that are 243 casings, because I just necked them back up to a 308. And I've made 243 ammo by knocking down a 308. All I'm doing is changing what die it goes through. That's all it is, and it just resizes it to the size I need. Done. So yes, if you are extremely motivated and you have the tools, you could most definitely go 22 to 50 or 220 Swift, but you'd have to cut out your receiver different, you'd have to make your own magazine. It's a pain in the ass. Now, what was this project supposed to be? It was not supposed to be like this. This is more of a DMR style rifle. Not at all what I had in mind. My original plan was something more like an Armorlight AR-10A2 carbine. Something nice, short, handy, but in a 243. Unfortunately, there's just not parts for that. I had a hell of a time finding parts to put this together. And the only thing that's different, because it's a 243, is the barrel. I can literally put on a 6.5 barrel, a 6mm Creedmoor barrel, a 308 barrel. Nothing else would change, just the barrel, because they all use basically the same casing. Now the Creedmoor uses a slightly cut down 308 version. Like, for example, the 6.5 Creedmoor and the Remington 260. The Remington 260 is a 308 that's tapered down to 6.5 millimeter. Where the 6.5 Creedmoor, they bump the shoulder down a little bit so you can't interchange the cartridges, which is important. That's why I have a 308 and a 243 in totally different style of magazines. This way I can't accidentally put a 243 inside of this or put a 308 inside of this. You're like, well, that ain't gonna fit because, you know, it's different. And it happens. Put your 308 in the 243 chamber, pushes the bullet into the casing, crunches the neck down just a little bit, you know, depending on how determined you are to get it in there, and then boom, your gun explodes. So that is something to be aware of. So it's not a bad idea if you have a 308 to go with 6.5 Creedmoor over Remington 260, so you don't have the possibility of putting in the wrong cartridge into the wrong rifle. But what this was supposed to be is a lot more like the Scar here, or an Armorlight AR-10A2 carbine, but in 243. Again, the parts were the problem. The only barrels I could find in 243 were like target barrels. Nothing at all for, I wanted like this type of barrel, just a standard steel barrel with a gas block pinned on it. Something I could just use open sights, just a nice little handy rifle. And it was going to be called the Shredder because it was simply there to tear apart armor. Now, knowing what I know now, I would have done their project differently. As a matter of fact, this is probably actually going to change. I'm probably going to take it from an armor smashing machine and turn it into more like a DMR, because the only thing I have to do that is switch ammunition. Now this does have a 1.9 twist barrel, I believe. I'll have to look that up and roll it in. It's not stamped, is it? So I'm limited. I think I can only get up to like 100 grain or something like that with this twist rate of barrel, but that's okay. That's totally fine. That'll still change the whole dynamics of the rifle, and I'll still keep a mag or two loaded with my 55 grains just in case I want to smash up some armor. And do like more like a DMR roll with this. Do a little bit more long range, because this just isn't, like, it would work. You could do it, you know, just like kind of like medium range, low power zoom, and just go center mass shots. But this would be way better suited to get down on the pod, because this rifle's pretty heavy. It's a lot heavier than I intended it to be. I was hoping for like a 9, maybe 10 pound rifle. I think I'd have to throw this on the scale. Let me grab it real quick. This bad boy with a loaded magazine, about 13.5 pounds. So yeah, like trying to use it in that sort of roll, it's just not going to work well. It's too heavy. So I'm probably going to switch it more to like a DMR style of rifle. Because you just couldn't use it like the Scar. You couldn't use it like on the move and stuff like that because it's too heavy. Plus I learned, if I just simply feed this 45 grain ammo to the Black 13, which is an AR-15 with a 20-inch barrel, It does almost the exact same job as this rifle right here. The only difference is this can't really get into the level 3 ceramics. I mean, it can if you hit it multiple times, but with a single shot penetration, no, it can't do that. And it can only smash the steel armor out to like 50 yards or so. Yeah, because at 100 it's moving too slow. The muzzle is 36, so probably like 50 yards is the only distance it can smash that at. And I'll probably do something, I think I'm going to call it the Sweet 16. And then I'm just going to re-gear this rifle to be more of a marksman, DMR style of rifle. And then I'm going to build like an M16, like an SP1 style rifle, and I'm just going to feed it 45 grain. Open sights, just fast. Its sole purpose is to smash armor. So, if you're going to do this job and you wanted to do something like this but you're not really into builds, I think Rock River Arms offers a 243, but again, it's more like this rifle right here. It's not like the Scar. And if you wanted to do it in the intended purpose that I was going to do it for, you want something more like the Scar. The best way to do it if you have the cash is go 22 Cheetah, which is a 308 with a 22 projectile, because then you could build whatever the hell you want, because I mean that's already, it's a Wildcat cartridge, so you're already going to have dies made, you're already going to have a special purpose barrel made, so then you could take like an AR-10, something that looks a lot more like this, have them make it, put on a gas block, throw on open sights, and then use it for just smashing up armor. Like that would work. That would be ideal. Do I recommend doing this? 243 is actually a very versatile cartridge. The max grain I believe is 115. But you can go all the way down to 55 grain. So you have the ability to be at damn near 4,000 feet per second, or you have the BC to shoot stupid ranges, just stupid long ranges. Because this is enough powder to make a 6mm just do crazy stuff. There's enough case capacity in here to where you can hit 4,000 feet per second if you want, or you can jump up the ladder and go to a heavy cartridge, like, or a heavy projectile like 100, 115, somewhere in there, and have the BC to just shoot stupid long ranges. Not to mention, these have very little recoil. I'm guesstimating, now I know there's actual charts where you can pull up the real numbers, but it's got to be like a third of a 308. Because physics. If you're going to take a light projectile and accelerate it to, we're going to just make up even numbers so it's easy to understand. We're going to say 3,000 feet per second. If I took a 55 grain and I accelerated to 3,000 feet per second. Now if I take a 308 and I take like a 175 grain and accelerate it to 3,000 feet per second, which one's going to have more recoil? Equal and opposite reaction. Obviously the 55 grain in that particular scenario is going to have 1/3 the recoil. Now that I put a scenario down like that and I look at the velocity in that, this has probably got like half the recoil of a 308. Great for rapid fire. If you're running a break with lighter projectiles, you can just lay down the hammers, pa 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 pa, and you'll keep a nice sight picture. It's not going to bounce around like a 308 will. So that's really cool. But I would, what the hell was I talking about? Recoil. Oh yeah, if you would do one. But again, you know, the parts just aren't there. So I would probably build something more like an AR-15 and like a 204. That should be fast enough. I'd have to check the numbers on that. Or like just run 40 grain, 45 grain varmint ammo, and you have the velocity. The only thing that matters with armor is velocity. Unless, of course, you're going to be running AP ammo with some sort of hardened steel core. This way it's actually drilling through. Because what you're doing is you're just slapping that fast enough to where a chunk of it breaks off and it turns into a projectile. That's it. Velocity is the only thing that matters. I did it. I thought there was more to it than that. But no, after shooting that steel with this ammo, yeah, velocity, that's it. That's the only variable. But I suppose it makes sense if I were to hit say this level 4 plate with a grain of sand moving at light speed, it would completely disintegrate. Even though it's only a grain of sand, because the velocity is so high, this would just explode, and it probably would explode the target behind it. So, I appreciate you guys watching my video. I hope you liked the shredder project. It's one of my favorite projects. It's not the favorite, but it's one of the favorites. I really enjoy it, and I can't wait to see what it'll do with some heavier grain projectiles at a much longer range. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can always click on the affiliate links down below and go to my Amazon store. I have a variety of stuff there. Even if you don't buy one of the items I have there, just going to my store and then doing the Amazon shopping you're already going to do anyway, a little kickback for it because you came there off my channel. And that helps a lot. It really does. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.